Atlantis in America. A story told by David Carrico and Brian Reese. Atlantis. In a world where the past holds secrets and mysteries to be uncovered about the truth. This is the story of two brave adventurers who must expose the lies and overcome impossible odds to uncover the secrets of Atlantis and its connection to America. As the two men embark on their journey, they are faced with challenges at every turn. From the made-up stories of academia, they must use all of their skills and cunning to survive. But as they delve deeper into the unknown, they begin to uncover a sinister plot that threatens human history. With time running out and the stakes higher than ever, our two explorers must summon all of their courage and strength to face their greatest challenge yet. There will be scoffers and persecution and dangers that lie ahead. This epic broadcast of adventure and suspense will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end. Filled with action, intrigue, and heart-pounding suspense, this is a broadcast that you will keep on repeat.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to FOJC Radio Sunday Night Live with myself and Brian Reese here on the FOJC Radio Rumble channel. We're excited to be here, and we had, as you know, last week, a lot of you come out to listen to the broadcast. We couldn't do it. Brian did everything he could, but Brother Brian, you got it rocking. You got it rocking this evening.
Absolutely, David. So glad to be here today. Thank you all for being so patient with us. One of the most anticipated conversations and broadcasts I think that I will ever have the pleasure of doing. Last week we had a few tech issues, but we're back. We are back, and I'm so thankful to be here with David Carrico, looking for Atlantis Rising. And I believe me, folks, everything is rising up. There's fires in the west, east, north, south, all over God's country. And man, Atlantis is rising in the Atlantis in America series that we're doing here. But welcome everybody. Hit all the links in the description. Hit the Rumble button. Let us know how we do at the end. Put in the comments section, and let's get this thing riding, David. I'm really real quick before if you haven't had the opportunity, go check out Atlantis in America, our first broadcast. And this was going to be the second segment for this in Atlantis Rising. And it is just a pleasure, David, to do this broadcast with you, my friend. And I'm going to turn back the floor to you, my friend. Yeah.
Well, me too. I love these topics, as you know. And I think this is just so timely. I think we have our finger right on the button of what's going on here. The world really is on fire. You know, the wheels are coming off of this old cart, and that's all right, because the Lord has better plans here. But we are just, I guess we don't have to say anymore, but we are thankful to be here after all the trials and the obstacles. To be here every time I'm able to speak to the people, to lift up the Lord and peel back the darkness, I'm thankful for it. So let's get rocking.
Absolutely, David. Well, where we're going to go first, folks, is, guess what? Here we go. We're going to go to Gilgal. So me and David's got a lot to talk about on Gilgal, so here we go. We're going to go Gilgal together. So the Gilgal Refham. So what do you think about this, David? We got us a portal-like system going on with a little serpent mount action, and we're going to expose that tonight on FOJC Rumble and throw some Google imagery. But, you know, here's the Gilgal. Me and Brother Dan did a broadcast this last Friday talking about the Sethite theory, the Nephilim, and all that, and the giants. In Gilgal, David, I know you know this, just recently they did excavations over there in the archaeology dig, and they found they literally just blatantly come out in the mainstream media and said, hey, we got giants over here, right? Yeah. In this so-called portal. And it's it's highly compelling, guys. like I say all the time, you can't make it up, but it's something to really keep an eye on. It really is.
And we're going to show a relationship here on various locations here on the earth. And there's a relationship between the serpent mound and the portal. And this Gilgal Rephaim, it's about a quarter of a mile from a huge serpent structure there in Israel. And this is made out of thousands and thousands of stones. It's just an unbelievable structure. And what we have here, we have a Nephilim church. This is a little Nephilim church, is what it is. And it is a portal. And the Nephilim created these with the specific intentions of having a place to worship and to open up portals. There's a relationship between the serpent structures and the portals. And when we talk about Atlantis Rising, literally, the powers of hell, the powers of the underworld, they manifest through these structures, and you can see it manifest on the earth in the people, in the way they behave and the way they believe. And we're going to see that graphically in your area. So we literally have that ancient antediluvian culture rising. And what this is really cool in a lot of respects, but this is the very place where Elijah was translated. And sometimes you just have to preach them like you feel them. And I could just see when the Nephilim, they were there at Gilgal Rephaim, and they were doing all they could to open their portals. And then here comes Elijah, and the Lord just catches him up. See, guys, and that's what it's about. It's about illegitimate access into the heavenly realm without Jesus Christ. And we've got the relationship, we've got the portal and the serpent mound. And this thing it's a huge thing that is all over the earth. And we're going to be able to understand in Atlantis Rising the effect this is still having. We're going to see it's having an effect right now in our area, certainly, Brian.
Well, here's real quick before we show satellite footage, I guess, or Google Earth imagery, and talk about this particular site here. David, I've looked at a bunch of Stonehenges, water receding, descending, and all this, and showing evidence of ancient, they would say prehistoric villages, or just average size human villages, right? This one in particular, they just showed, what was it, last year, I think, a year and a half ago probably, when they said, they literally came out in the media and said, hey, there was giants here in this certain location here, right? So what's so bizarre about it is I've looked at different Stonehenges and different things that fit this same profile, and when the waters would go down after it would be flooded, it would be on these shorelines. There was one in Spain, matter of fact, I did a broadcast on it last year, and there would be, every time, it happened four times, supposedly in recorded history. Each time there's always a person there, either a man, woman, or just a few people, and they don't know how they got there, right? So it's kind of like the same thing here. What's going on here? And we're going to peel back the onion here tonight. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm going to show some Google Earth imagery. And, we can talk about the snake, the serpent mound that you said. And there's an ancient village. There's an ancient structure village. You can see it. It's very prominent on there. So let's check it out, David. Absolutely.
Let's look at it. Let's take a look.
1 second. All right. Let's see. Let's go to it. Here we go. So as y'all can see, there's a green line up there at the top. I'll indicate what that is in a minute for everybody in the audience. But here we are at Gilgal here. So folks, look at this. I mean, it's pretty in the circumference. It's a pretty good circle there. David, I don't think me and you could pull this off, my friend. I don't think me and you could pull off this type of architect work. What do you think?
It's amazing, and there's so many thousands and thousands and thousands of stones that are arranged like this. I mean, the man hours, or I guess you could say the Nephilim hours of putting this in was really amazing. It's an amazing structure that's been there for thousands of years, made out of nothing but loose stones. It's absolutely amazing. And it is a portal. It's a little Nephilim church.
Well, let's go and see if we can actually go in. There's actually a little bit, I think there's a spot where I can actually go inside of it. There's some pictures, imagery, so it'll actually take you and drag you into it. So let's go check it in. Oh yeah, so here we go, folks. There's some people here, and there's all these rocks that Dave was talking about here. There's thousands and thousands of rocks to build this fort here. I mean, it's unbelievable. We're actually in the top of it. We're inside the middle of the circle. As you can see on the outskirts of it, there's so much in perimeter here. I mean, this is a long distance. You can see the perspective here. There's a person here, and then there's a wall of rocks, wall of rocks, wall of rocks. I mean, it's pretty baffling, David. Pretty bizarre.
I think I'd have a pretty hard time toting some of them.
Absolutely. Well, that's one thing too, like at Bellback and all these different locations, a lot of people say, well, and I know this for a fact for working out in the hay fields and tobacco, my friend. So listen, you can be at your top of your game in your prime state, and you'll break sweat at the brow and everything. It'll break you down. I mean, it's hard work working out in the hay fields and everything. Could you imagine? I mean, even construction workers of today, David, my goodness, could you imagine the weight that they'd have to carry on their back to even build this structure alone? And this is the patience to do it. 1 rock, 2 rock, 3 rock, 10,000 rocks. and there's not enough wheelbarrows or not enough mechanisms to pull off this endeavor, in my opinion, David.
Yeah, and when you look at Baalbek and the huge, unbelievably huge stones that we would be incapable of moving and building with today, if you look and just really think about what we have at Gilgal Rephaim, the thousands and thousands of stones that are aligned there, it's almost as overwhelming as what was accomplished at Baalbek. And truly the word superhuman feat, and I think it is, it's a Nephilim feat that accomplished this.
Absolutely. And this site reminds me, I hate to bring up Hollywood narrative, but the movie Thor, when Thor's falling from Asgard, right? And he's falling down like lightning, and he hits the ground, and there's this impression on the ground, right? There's a circle when the lightning strikes. It looks like the same symbol that you would get from the Gilgal narrative. It's pretty bizarre. I mean, they're literally telling you in the folks in the Hollywood narrative what they're doing, what they've done, and what they are accomplishing in the future reference. It's predictive programming on steroids.
Yeah. And they're wanting to bring entities through the portals, just like in the movie when Thor fell in. This is exactly what these little folks are up to.
I agree. Let's check out the serpent mound that you referred to when we started off the broadcast. So this square here is just to indicate a marker, but so here's what David was talking about with this serpent snake. It's right up at the top, and it slithers on down. I mean, it's literally not that many. It's just a few hundred. I mean, not even a couple hundred yards away from the Gilgal spot.
Yeah, less than a quarter of a mile. It's just right there.
I mean, you can't. I mean, it's pretty bizarre. But if you get to the end here, if you look in, David, there's a spot here that's pretty compelling. The circle here, right? And this is an ancient village right here, and ancient structures. All this right here, where these trees are. There's nothing else you can't discredit. I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's right there. I was going to see if I could pop up anywhere that they took some other pictures that maybe Google Earth would allow me to go and actually zoom in on the site with the snake, the serpent mound, but I cannot achieve that, David. It can only let me go in the Gilgal circle, but that's okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, we've got, and here's the relationship: serpent portal, portal, and this thing is several times larger than the most famous mound in Ohio. And even on top of this mound, and what's even more amazing, it's a lava flow, and people, and there's really something going on with that, with earth energies and the way that the fallen powers access things. And there's literally places, there are people that are buried on the top of this. And boy, wouldn't you like to be able to see some of the stuff buried in there?
Absolutely.
And even little places where like people lived literally in the serpent mound and burial places on it. It's really just absolutely amazing. And it's not real well known, I don't think, but it's absolutely amazing. And wouldn't it be fitting that right here in the original land of the Nephilim, that this would be where we have the biggest serpent structure at all, right here in Israel?
Absolutely. And one thing too to mention, you was talking about ancient energies, right? We've talked about scalar energy on our mud flood and mud fossil broadcast, and we touched base on that a little bit. But check this out. So we talk about ley lines. I talk about it a lot. Look how the distance. There's a ley line right here up north of the Gilgal. It's the green line here. I can pull up for everybody to see the distance, and it's not that far away from that distance of that Gilgal Raphaim. It's like 13 miles away, David. I mean, we're not.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be bringing up tonight. A lot of ancient structures, megalithic structures, effigy mounds, all these different things. And we're going to be relating to Serpent Mound. There's a lot of different serpent mounds in this realm, folks. And it's just something me and David, we just enjoy it. We want to bring it up. We want to bring it to light. And like he said, there's these spiritual applications that these earth energies are really resurrecting ancient things, ancient deities and stuff. It's really coming. It's coming to light here in America, and that's why we're exposing this stuff here. So yeah, David, I mean, what do you think about this ley line?
Well, this is a pattern. We see this over and over. We've seen it before, and ley lines are places that are marking earth energy. And this isn't, it is something the New Agers really buy into, but there's a reality of the powers of the underworld and of them manifesting in certain places more strongly, the places where there are portals. And there are certain places on earth where there are huge portals. We could talk about the Bermuda Triangle. We could talk about Skinwalker Ranch, the Devil's Triangle in the Pacific. There are places on earth where paranormal activity is off the chart. And now the more these things are just like an animal marking its territory. And when an animal marks its territory, it will just expand it out. And that's what we see. We see literally the paranormal activity all over the earth. It's just escalating. It's going off the chart. The things that people are seeing and reporting on a regular basis is just confirmation of this.
Yeah, and check this out, David. If you really wanted to kind of get into biblical cosmology, and we're looking at Gilgal before we move on here, check out the rings, David. We're going to be talking about that here more in the broadcast. I know you got a lot to present on that, but check out the rings. If you looked at a flat Earth map, or if you look into the ice wall and you talk about the Book of Enoch and whatnot, look at all the different ring systems here. It's almost kind of eerie, David. I mean, if you really think about it, there's these maps out that has different, Admiral Byrd talks about it, where there's different lands beyond the ice wall, right? But you see these maps where it has like Amun-Ra land, the land of the giants, the Thoth, the floating island of Thoth, and all these different things, right? So it's kind of interesting if you look at it, Gilgal, where it has the pin here, the tag, and it tells Gilgal is right dab in the center of it, but you have all these layers, right? You have these different circle rings, and we're going to talk about that more in the broadcast, but it's just kind of interesting. This is a very, I think it's, I say there's more of this buried underneath the water, and places that have not been seen for 2,000 or 3,000 years, probably, in my opinion. But yes, sir. Very
now this is something that you can see visually repeatedly in patterns of these circular structures. We'll see more of them this evening. And if you go back to the original story of Atlantis from Plato, and Plato described Atlantis this very way. There was the center and the throne, and there were rings that went out around Atlantis. And what this really is, it's an imitation of the throne of God. And you can read in the book of Revelation, it talks about the angels that were round about the throne. You can notice that in the Bible, in Revelation, it talks about the angels round about, and that's what it means. It's literally, there's the throne of God, you have a circle of angels, then you'll have another circle. This is exactly the satanic imitation of that. And in the original story of Atlantis, in the very center, this is where the original transgression took place, where that human girl was impregnated in the center of Atlantis. And of course, this is the heart of what they're all about, polluting the human genome and the animal genome, and literally setting up the Satan kingdom, the kingdom of hell on the earth. And of course, the serpent, this has got to be their number one symbol. And the serpent and the portal, this is ground zero to Atlantis Rising, and they're bringing forth on the earth and manifesting their agenda.
It's the whole Hollywood narrative, right? We talked about this before. Stargate Atlantis, right? So the Stargate, here we are talking about snakes. You was talking about impregnating and all these different things. In the Stargate series, they have these so-called gods that look like serpents, and they get in the back of the skull, and they wrap around the basically the skeleton, the skeletal system over in the spine, and get into the cerebral cortex and everything, to literally to inhabit the body. So it's interesting that they're basically, impregnate the mind. There's going to be another passenger in there taking over the body, right? And it kind of makes you think, here we go, we got the snake, and you got a Stargate, right? A portal. And it's kind of ironic that what's the irony of it, David? It's kind of interesting how, they have to know something. People have to know, these people that are in the Hollywood narrative, they know this stuff. They do.
Sure they do. They know it very well. They're living it. They're propagating it. And it's also in deliverance situations. There are people that dabble in these type of things that literally, there are Kundalini spirits that literally get wrapped in their spine. And this is a horrible reality. And that's one of the most horrific bondages that men and women can fall into. But unfortunately, it is reality, and there is deliverance in Christ. There absolutely is.
Absolutely. But yeah, Gilgal is one to keep an eye on, folks. And, here's my opinion, David. If this ever gets flooded, okay, just hypothetically, the way everything's going, the way California and everything's going as we speak, it could be highly possible that this could be flooded one of these days. Look out. I'm just making a statement. We're talking about the elements of the, we could get into Stoichion. We get into a whole, that's not even for this broadcast. But what I'm saying, if this ever floods, look out, because when the water recedes, I bet you there'll be something there. It's always bizarro world with this stuff, and I think the, military and these archaeologists that work for the military understand this. But that's just my opinion and kind of a theory.
Sure they do.
But hey, there you go.
They do. They absolutely do. Also, I might reference the work of another gentleman that's passed, Barry Chamish. And Barry Chamish wrote books about giants in Israel and about some of the modern appearances of giants and UFOs. Very compelling stuff. And of course, as we might know, when you talk about the biggest portals in the world, we've got Gilgal Rephaim, we've got Mount Hermon, we've got the gates of hell there at the foot of Mount Hermon. This is ground zero here, and there has been a definable record of paranormal activity and absolutely Nephilim activity to this very day in Israel.
Absolutely, David. And it's just kind of interesting too that it's always a circle. I know it geometric shapes and stuff like that, but it baffles the mind, really. Here's real quick too before we move on. The Gilgal, if anybody out there that believes in the dispensational ideology, they think about the Sethite theory and they believe that it was just the sons of God didn't have it, the sons of God was just the sons of Seth, just check out Gilgal Rephaim. Check this out. Check this location out. Watch this video if you do. But yeah, if you don't believe me and David, go check out the site. And it'll change your mind when you look at Genesis 6 narrative and say, hey, there was giants in the earth in those days and also after that. So look, hey, there you go. So check out Gilgal, because it's got enough information on it to peel your eyes back, so to speak. So, yeah, right. David.
Absolutely. And the people that the terrible thing about this Sethite theory, it's a false doctrine. But when you look at things like Gilgal Rephaim and Baalbek and others, we could talk about a lot of these megalithic sites. It's just beyond, if we can't build them now, how could primitive man build them then? They'll say, well, it was the aliens, it's ET, yeah. They'll get into the Von Daniken, Sitchkin, ancient alien, and then they'll completely throw the word of God aside and pick up this ancient alien theology. But the answer is right there in the word of God. It's plain, it's in our face, and if we'll believe our Bibles, we can really understand Atlantis Rising and what our role is here during the midst of that.
Well, real quick before we move on, I want to add this. Why do you think Israel spoke about it? But it didn't really make mainstream media around here in the Americas. But talking about the giants that they found, they had to clean it up, right? It's the same application every time you turn around, David. They clean it up, Smithsonian, or it's a third-party buyer. It's usually, I've tracked a lot to different countries, and I'm not going to get into the names. It has nothing to do with the Smithsonian. And guess what? This is biblical narrative, biblical truth, but they have to clean it up because they don't want nobody to believe the giants that roam the earth. They want to believe the ETs. So yeah, that's what they're setting up the New World Order narrative up to, or whatever, however you want to word it. The great deception, upon mankind with the alien stuff. So angels and demons back in the day, now just aliens. So it's pretty sad.
Yeah, and a lot of this is, like you say, the rich and the elite, they're buying this stuff up. And an interesting story in a book by Eric von Däniken, who is probably the father of the ancient alien theory. And he talked about when he was speaking in South America, and he got a call from Pablo Escobar. And as a matter of fact, Pablo sent some of his guys to his hotel room, and they took him to Pablo's house. And he claims that Pablo Escobar showed him an amazing collection of this type of thing, ancient artifacts that he had collected. So this is absolutely right. The rich and the elite, this stuff is the rich and the elites in Europe and all over. They're buying this stuff up and they're keeping it out of the eye of the common individual.
Absolutely, David. I agree with that 100%. The next one up, David, if you want to move on, we got the Serpent Mound in Ohio, my friend. This one could be sitting on this one for a while, and it's not too far from me. It's not too far from you. Let's jump into the Serpent Mound and let's make this connection. Let's see, is there any kind of evidence that Gilgal is similar to the Serpent Mound in Ohio? What do you think, David?
Well, we have an obvious pattern, and there are many hinges, which are these circular structures. They're all over Ohio. This is something that Mr. Zimmerman has written about, and there's a lot of pictures of these in L.A. Marzulli's books. The mound and the hinges, they're all over Ohio. Some of them, and they're in West Virginia. You've got them in your area, and some of them are even exactly 666 feet in the circumference and the numbering of them. So we've got the same pattern. And what we see here, we've got, there was a time when there was an antediluvian world. We'll call it Atlantis, that world that sunk under the sea. And I think, like Plato, there's been many civilizations. There's so much underwater stuff and stuff on the earth that has been flooded and receded that we've got an undeniable fact, I think, to anyone that will look at this rationally, that there was an ancient civilization that was before the flood of Noah and even older. It was coordinated worldwide. It was literally a old world order that they're going to try to bring back as the new world order. We can see this symbolism and so many things that are consistent. We're going to be showing Hindu statues right over by you in Kentucky, that there was a intelligent civilization all over the earth. They were connected with communications. They were connected with travel. They were connected with worship. And this common symbology is undeniable. And the antiquity of this, this serpent mound here, all of the Indians, as you know, they say that they didn't build it. It was there when they came. And they actually claim that there's a huge crystal buried underneath the head of the serpent.
I want to elaborate on this. Absolutely. So just within the last year, I know of a gentleman that lives not too far from here. And he's full-blood Native American, and he owns a little antique shop. He's in his 80s. I want to interview him. I know somebody that went in there. He started rambling on. He's very well versed and well known. He really knows what he's talking about. He blankly come out and said, "Hey, my tribe used to come together. We used to congregate together and talk about the giants that roam the earth." And he's in his late 80s. He's an older gentleman, and he said he's seen bones and everything. I got to interview the guy, but for sure, the whole crystal narrative. What do you think, David? I think here we go. We got a meteor. They talk about meteor, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But the whole crystal thing at the mouth, and it's the snake eating the egg. What do you think, David? Because anywhere I come across in our world that we live in, there's a lot of folklore. there's a lot of information about comets, a lot of information about meteorites, but then when you get into the folklore, they'll say that there's these orbs or these big circles that come down and they crash, or not crash, but land, and miraculously they're a giant human or giant man. So what if this crystal, what if it's not a crystal, David? What if it's actually, what if that's just something that they've said for just, just consumption and people just to divert and get people away from the area? And it might, heck, there might be a 20-footer in there, David. Who knows?
Yeah,
It's all speculation.
I would not doubt a bit of what there is. And the whole scenario of crystals is very fascinating. Tracy and I, in the near future, we're preparing an entire broadcast on the crystal skulls.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, you talk about a fascinating topic. That deeply is. And we're going to be, actually, it's amazing. We're going to see a segue into a connection with the Nazi technology that was developed during World War II that used crystals. And crystals are used in lasers.
Mm-hmm.
Crystals is the component that makes quantum computers. It's taking computers to the AI state. It's through the use of crystals and quartz crystals. So when you talk about crystals in lasers, you're talking about things that are used in communications. They have a unique ability to vibrate. And when they're exposed to light, vibration, and magnetism, they do crazy things. So this is the area here where we're talking about communications or even weaponry. So we don't know what's under there, but it is interesting that this tradition is that there is a crystal under there. So we don't know, but it is fascinating, and we see these common threads that keep reappearing in all of these stories and all of these legends wherever we find them all over the earth. And if even just a few of them have validity, we have an amazing narrative that we're seeing on truly all over the earth.
Absolutely, the crystal narrative. There's crystals in our headsets, in our earbuds, heck, in the Blu-rays and the DVDs. They're literally they're precision cut. They're cut by literally crystals. That's how they collect the data. To hold and harness the 25 gigs of data from these Blu-ray discs, and they're thicker. They're made out of crystals. I mean, that's to harness the data, so you can play the Blu-ray on for eternity until the Blu-ray depletes, until it deteriorates and starts breaking back down into the earth. Crystals alone, David, I know I don't want to change subject here, but the crystals alone, I've looked into it. I think if you touch it, it holds memory, just like the water holds memory. And then there's like a vibrational rate narrative that goes along with it. Just kind of throwing it out in there. I know that's for your all's broadcast, but kind of just throwing a little 2 cents in there on that. But yeah. So
there have been some what you say sounds unbelievable, but there have been some crazy things done with crystals and memory where they have absolutely retrieved memories by they're shooting light through it and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, this has actually happened. Yeah, it sounds unbelievable, but something about crystals is just otherworldly almost. And it's and in the obelisk, Tracy and we did a whole broadcast on obelisk, and the obelisk had quartz crystals in it, which opens up the possibility, and a lot of people have talked about energy transmitters, communication, even weaponry. All of these are possible when you get into this realm of the crystal and the vibrations. And this was the technology the Nazis were tapping into, and you can do amazing things with it. Amazing things.
I'll tell you what's kind of baffling. It's kind of frightening too. So just a little bit of a personal thing, but I just got new glasses, and they're forged with prisms, right? So if you look at a prism narrative in the crystal scenario, you see rainbows, right? If you shoot lasers and crystals and all kinds of different light reflecting and light therapy, right? So it's kind of bizarre, David. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. There's certain lenses that you can put on the human body, and it can change your perspective. I mean, literally, on just all kinds of anomalies. But anyways, folks, let's get back on the horse, David. I'll take us down a rabbit hole there. But the crystal, the egg, there's supposedly the meteorite that is talked about that supposedly landed there. But here, folks, if you go to this location, which we can go to it. David, you want to go to it on the Google Earth?
Let's do.
Let's do
it. Okay, yeah, just go to the Google Earth.
Okay. One moment. Let's see. Let's go from Gilgal to Server Mount in Ohio. So as you can see, folks, here we are at the Server Mount. If you want to elaborate, if you was going to say something else, David, go. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, let's get a good shot. Get down on that rascal.
Get on that rascal.
Let's get a
here.
good look at it.
Let's give you a better perspective here, folks. That circle marker is just there for a marker. Forgive me, it's a little messed up, but there you go. So here we go.
All right. Now, just notice into the structure of this mound, we have the serpent, and what do we have on the end? We have the coil there on the left. Mm-hmm. The coil, like there it is, right there. We've got the portal. We got the serpent in the portal, and this structure in Ohio, I've been there, and I know many of our listeners have. It's impressive. It's impressive to look at this, and it's not, and it's not on the scale of grandeur that the hinge there in Gilgal Rephaim, but that's exactly what we've got. We've got the serpent and the portal there at the end of its tail, and we're going to talk more about the serpent. It's opening its mouth like to swallow the earth, and oh boy, we're going to have some ideas on that. What all that involves. But we see the serpent and the portal, these same undeniable symbols. And if you think about it, at Babel, the Tower of Babel, they were trying to build a tower that would reach into heaven. Mm-hmm. And they were smart enough to know that if they could build it 586 miles high, they might get there. They weren't that dumb, but they were looking for a portal. Just like it has been proven scientifically that there is something over Skinwalker Ranch. They have measured it that's emitting radiation. There's something there. And Nimrod knew there was something above Babel, and he was wanting to get up there and access that portal. It's exactly the same thing. And this is the universal serpent worship that we had all over the earth. And like I said, at Babel, the languages were dispersed. So what better way to communicate when you cannot talk the same language than symbology? And these symbols all over the earth, they were there for even the remotest antiquity, and they became into play big time after the dispersion of Babel, when they tried to reconstitute literally Atlantis Rising. And they wanted to bring back that old pagan culture all over the earth through the use of their symbols, channeling out the demonic energy. And I tell you what, look around, they've done a pretty good job. They've done a much better job than the Israel of God has in exposing and combating this. We have to say that. I don't say that with great pleasure, but I think in honesty, we have to say that.
Here's a little bit of I agree with that 100%, David. And here's something to throw in there, just off the cuff. Check out so you got the egg on the right up there, display on the screen, so-called where the crystal is, and then you said the portal on the left, the coil. So here, this constellation of Draco, the constellations and everything, they all align somehow miraculously with these effigy mounds and these hinges and something. There's something, we talked about scalar energy. You was talking about the Nazis and how they use these things. There's something here. The crystal, the portal. You got we talked about, earlier we talked about Thor, right? The Rainbow Bridge, right? The Rainbow Bridge. You got the connection with prisms, right? And I was talking about that with my glasses. It's kind of random, but then you got the crystals with the light, right? And then you have this disputation. It distributes a light, like if you have a rainbow. And isn't it kind of interesting? Rainbow Bridge, coil, crystal, there's water. Look at this right beside it. This is how I always looked at all kinds of effigy mounds. Check this out, David. There's a creek, Ohio Brush Creek. It's literally in walking distance. You can jump in the creek, and there's always a water system. But hey, even this is another one that's baffling, David. Check this out. Here we go, another ley line connection. Check out here on the right, not too far. And it's literally it's not even, I think it's just a few miles. It's pretty baffling, David, from here to let me see if I can get it to connect. Yeah, it's not even a mile. You could literally walk from the Serpent Mound to the ley line.
Yeah.
It's just baffling. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Undeniable pattern. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that I saw this when I was over there years ago, that this creek merges together with another creek very near the Serpent Mound. And this is something also we see a pattern in Babylon, ancient Babylon. We have the Tigris and Euphrates. All over, we have this connection. And I know right there in Evansville, there was a tremendous amount of occult activity and very nasty occult activity right there among the proximity where Pigeon Creek went into the Ohio River there. And there's something about this. There's patterns, there's earth energy, the way that these things flow. And we're not talking about the Mother Earth Gaia New Age theory. We're talking about what the Word of God says about the things that are in the underworld. We've done a lot of studies on that too. And what we're doing here, we're building on a lot of layered truth. We've done a lot of in-depth studies on all aspects of this. And the more that you do, the more you see these similarities come together, and the more we're able to put together a picture of what's going on. And literally, we have Atlantis Rising, and they're doing it through a revival of this ancient culture, through these ancient symbols. And it's he that hath an ear, let him hear.
Absolutely, David. I just kind of wild hair here, and I went ahead and zoomed in because it was able to allow me to show some imagery on the ground. Check out, this is where the egg is, David. And check out this. It gave us a little bit of indication that this place right here, if it gets a lot of water, it packs a lot of water up here, huh? Imagine that, David. See a little bit of water here, and isn't that interesting that indentation could make a little pond if it rained hard enough? I just want to kind of make it, make a little connection when we was talking about Gilgal a while ago, and I was talking about water. But this is supposedly where the egg is. We're literally sitting on top of it right now, on the egg.
Well, and this is another aspect that's very interesting. You can see this right in Washington, D.C. You have the Capitol, then you have the obelisk, and in the middle you have the reflecting pool. You can see this in the ancient capital of the Aztecs near Mexico City. They had a large reflecting pool bear the pyramid and the obelisk. This gets back into the what the occult people would call the scrying, and the not crying but scrying, where they would literally use that reflecting pool as a way of divination and contacting spirits. But my guess, I can't prove it, but you can just see right there, it's got the water in it, that in antiquity, this was exactly how this was used. Because here again, we see this pattern. We see it there in Washington, D.C., and the old Aztec capital. This is one of the basic things they do for contacting spirits. And that's what it's all about. They want to get in the place where there's the most earth energy. They want to honor their deity with their idolatrous symbols, and they want those things to manifest. Just like Thor fell down and into the little circle. This is exactly, they're wanting to bring down hell on earth, literally. And we got into the in the obelisk broadcast with Tracy, the Egyptian goddess Nuit, who was shown just like the firmament arching across the sky. And the obelisk, which was the phallic symbol, it in their lore, it would fertilize Nuit, and this would bring back the age of the giants, the age of Zep Tepi, when the giant ones built the great structures. And this is the whole purpose, bringing back that Zep Tepi in the Egyptian or whatever, in whatever lore. And it's the same. You see it all over the earth, the American Indians. So this is what it's about. It's about Atlantis Rising. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I had a slide talking about it a little bit. We've kind of touched base on it already, but I'll just read it here. Did you know, David, that the Great Serpent Mound is 1,370 feet long? And of course, they deem it prehistoric. Here you go, folks. Prehistoric, a effigy mound, and it sits on a southwest side of a meteor impact crater, which me and David already elaborated too. Was the Serpent Mound built upon a powerful magnetic of prehistoric times, which we've kind of touched base on, and we totally believe that. But here's the thing that really, I just said powerful magnetic and gravitational anomalies, weather fluctuations, and we've had a lot of weather fluctuations and Earth energies, like we talked about, and forms of Earth lights. Is there crystal under the ground? And we've already elaborated that too. And they say it's a crystal, like it's eating an egg. So, we touched base on that gravitational pull. I've been to some mounds myself, David, and we're going to talk about that today. That literally cell phones start to go bonkers, and you're at the base of the mound, and they go bonkers. Just like you mentioned earlier with the Skinwalker Ranch, they have anomalies. They're carrying EMF readers all day long, those tri-field meters, and they're going off the charts, right? There's all kinds of weird anomalies from like literally 40 feet this way to 20 feet back. It could be totally different. It does a 180, right? It's totally different outcome. And they're collecting this data, like you mentioned. And I really do think something between the summer solstice to the way the constellations move, this is a sacred site. And, we was going to reference a book. Remember the book we was going to reference. But if you want to elaborate on this slide here.
Well, one more thought comes to my mind here. And this goes back to some things we discussed in the Mud Flood broadcast. But we were talking there about mountains, angels that were like burning mountains falling to the earth. We read text in the book of Enoch of angels like blazing mountains. In the Babylonian text, in the ancient Babylonian exorcism text, it says that their god Ea was a meteorite. Now, what if, this is right here by a meteorite crater, what if this was built because an ancient entity actually came down to the earth here? And this portal was there because this is where literally we had someone come through. It's quite possible.
I was touching base on that earlier. The comets. And the Ring of Brogar, me and you've discussed this off air. The Ring of Brogar, there's this folklore, right? And we talked about that on the Mud Flood too, I think, where there's a comet comes and it's a giant, and it's communicating with the other giants to kind of get away from this cataclysm. But lo and behold, hey, there's a mound now. There's a crater impact, supposedly, but it's not, this massive 500,000 foot long death, like comet crater that they portray on the academia realm. It looks like a small geyser, or something like that. It's just an impression. But they literally say in the Ring of Brogar folklore, it was a fiddling, like a musician comet, but it was a giant human-like man. So here you go. Here's the connection with the giants that roam the earth. And wouldn't that be funny? Like you just said, David, wouldn't that be something to think about if there really was a giant still underneath that place right now? And it's just so regarded as a national landmark. See, when they put these national landmarks and deem them national parks, it's kind of like an entertainment thing, right? So nobody will question anything. Hey, it's fun to go to and look at this beautiful site, but it's a treasure box full of a treasure hunt underneath it, but they won't let you touch it, right? It's pretty baffling. Mm-hmm.
And what our ancient alien friends who do a lot of great research they look at a lot of the same material we do. And they talk about these sites as being liftoff pads for the Nephilim and their saucers. Well, they're not that far off. And you could see if this be the case, and we have evidence to indicate that if an entity did fall to the earth here, this portal here could literally be a way for this entity to go in and out of our realm. It's certainly biblically plausible, and the indications we see here point to that. And it's interesting. Last night on the Midnight Ride, I talked about, and it's I think this is so old, it was before television. It was back when they had the serials in the movie house with Gene Autry. And it was an old serial called The Phantom Empire. And Gene Autry lived on Radio Ranch. And underneath, there was all kinds of strange people from the heart of the earth coming up on Radio Ranch. And underneath, there was underground civilization, Maratha, where there was radiation coming up. It was all there. The coincidences and the similarities with what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch are crazy, just crazy.
Absolutely. And then just a little fun insert here. the gentleman that owns it, I don't want to say, I don't want to, I'm not discrediting him or bashing him in any shape or form. He just did a broadcast recently. I did not realize that he was a Mormon. Well, he used to practice Mormonism. I thought that was so interesting, David. Just want to throw it in there. I just wanted to kind of see get your gears turned on that. But it's interesting. He's very intelligent. He's got a lot of knowledge. Got a lot of money, and I wish him the best for his endeavors. But I know that he's on the cusp of finding something ancient under the ground. And they've even done this. They've done the LiDAR technology, everything, David. They found something they describe as a craft, or however they look at all the materials that are under the ground, would supposedly describe the I guess the structure of an element structure to build a shuttle for NASA, so to speak, in quote NASA, but
yeah.
You know what I'm saying. But
yeah, bless his heart, as far as I know, this gentleman is still a Mormon, and bless his heart, he had the Jewish rabbi out there to do a little prayer. They had like the New Ager out there and the Indian people to say the prayers. And my goodness, that's like throwing gasoline on a fire. And but this is another example of Atlantis Rising, and we have many of these all over the earth. And this is one of the pristine examples here. And before we go on here too, the slide here that shows the Graham Hancock book, do you have that up?
Absolutely, it is up. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Well, and let's just look at this for just a moment. And what we see here at the top left and right of this slide is the rock cliff that this earthen serpent mound sits on. And what do we see here? We see an even more ancient stone serpent structure that was there. Now, the historians now, the archaeologists, they want to make everything newer than what it is. And they admit that the serpent mound is prehistoric. The Indians say they didn't build it. They don't know who did. Well, who built this thing underneath that, this stone serpent underneath the earthen serpent mound? Mm-hmm. We're talking about something antediluvian. We're talking about something that is going back to the earliest ages of the civilization of mankind. This is old stuff. And this shows that there's an ancient tradition, and there are ancient entities that are tied to these sites that are very powerful. And people that don't take these things seriously, boy, they're going to get burned. They're going to get burned.
Absolutely, David. Here's a quick question for you, and kind of let everybody know what your take is on it. But do you think, just before we move on to the next one, do you think the Serpent Mound has a direct connection to the Ohio Valley? Is it directly aligned with a Stargate? And this could be why we see evidence of giants in this area. I mean, we're talking inundated with giants in prehistoric villages all up and down the Ohio Valley from this location. And if you cross-reference that data and you go to New Hampshire, and we know what New Hampshire with Stonehenge, right, Brother David? There's something, a big mixed bag of tricks the devil's playing here. What's your take on that?
Well, it absolutely is. And the Serpent Mound, and very well, right in your area, there's these earthworks and mounds that are aligned as above, so below. Just like Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock, they did the research and they proved that the three pyramids of Giza were aligned with the three stars of the belt of Orion. And people have studied that since then, and they have seen these alignments, and it's now commonly agreed that these works like this, they're aligned with the heavenly luminaries. And of course, the heavenly luminaries, they're stars and they're fallen beings. And here's Stargate. Okay, the heavenly luminaries are stars. So, okay, we'll align that with that, and we'll make a portal. After a while, the dots connect and the lights come on of what was going on here. And the entire Ohio River Valley, we could talk about over there in West Virginia, we got Mothman. Mm-hmm. Some of the most profound, amazing manifestations. We could talk about Mothman all night. That was right there on the Ohio River. I've read, we lived in Evansville for a good while, and I read the writings of the old steamboat captains on the Ohio River up in the 1800s that Every night they saw orbs. There were orbs appeared every night. Over in Cincinnati, the hub of the spiritualistic revival of mediums in the 1800s was right there in Cincinnati. Absolutely, there's a connection. And this is Atlantis Rising. These things are manifesting themselves on the earth. And I don't believe we are where we are by accident. We are here at this point in time to make people aware. And literally, these are the gates of hell. And we have that promise of Jesus, the gates of hell will not prevail. But this is just a picture's worth 1,000 words. Just look at that thing. I mean, that picture of that stone serpent underneath that earth serpent. Wow, we're talking about an ancient evil here, built in honor of an ancient entity that very well fell to the earth right in this very spot.
Speaking of, David, this is going to be kind of touching base on stargates, and then it kind of goes into archaeology digs. What has happened, I'm not going to say much about it on here, even on Rumble, what has happened recently to Hawaii? And there's a lot of systems involved there. There's a lot of different theories and videos out talking about these light rays coming out of the sky, and there's all kinds of conspiracy and theories out there. I got one for you, David. What if, hypothetically, they know darn well where these ancient sites are, but I'll riddle this one off for you, David. I heard this not too long ago that Hawaii has a direct Stargate, and I thought about this very clearly. I haven't even mentioned it on any broadcast I've done. Hawaii, and everybody was like, why would it be so much value there, right? Well, there's a military application there with a Stargate, and I've heard, but this is all, I don't know if it's conspiracy, but I've heard military men talk about a Stargate directly connected to Hawaii and to Alaska. So riddle that one off, David. So imagine that. So, here's the thing, real quick, to kind of add to kind of bring everything in and connect the dots. When I went to Tennessee this last July, and there was a tornado that came through a part of Kentucky, and you could see it from a far distance, not too far from the Kentucky border. A woman told me something very scary about her land, about a giant that was removed from a lake. A big giant in a sarcophagus. That's what she said back in the 80s. Somebody with big pockets, big money came in and bought it. Not Smithsonian. Mind you, she pointed out the location. I still got the footage of it. I haven't even exposed that to the world yet. But here's the thing. The lands in the neighborhoods that got disintegrated, so to speak, by this tornado activity, archaeologists came in. And they said, you can no longer go back to your home, the neighborhoods, because there's so much devastation. I looked at the woman, I said, I know exactly what it is, because there's something ancient underneath that ground, and they got to make sure they got all their ducks in a row, because they don't want somebody of a, civilian stature finding that there's some kind of valuable artifacts or something that would lead back to what we're presenting here on FLJC Rumble with this serpent mound and everything, that there would be something that you could prove the biblical narrative. And I was trying to express that, and she was like mind blown. But I just want to kind of give you a little theory that I have. Always do weapons and stuff. It's very something very eerie and sinister going on, Dave. What's your take on it, my friend?
Well, like you've already reiterated with the floods will reveal a lot of things. And also we could say ice melting reveals a lot of things. And that's a lot behind global warming. There's areas they're melting off because they want to get to certain places. And the whole scenario out there in Hawaii stinks. There's so much we could say about it. It isn't right on every level. But we could say very, very easily that what floods accomplish in revealing things, fires could also. And most definitely, this is a place where there was some of the most direct connections with, and of course, the Atlantis tradition in the Pacific is called Mu. Mm-hmm. And there's another book I'm going to read in the near future. It's called The Petroglyphs of Mu. Mm-hmm. And there was another place where that very thing, the same thing happened, that there was a flood came in and revealed a whole cadre of ancient petroglyphs. So this very well could be, and there's this understanding. You see, we've got like Mr. Velikovsky said, we got this paleoscience that they believe that there's a scientific connection with these ancient artifacts and these ancient records, to whereby they can access portals. And this is exactly, in their own words, what these Nazi scientists said. They read the Vedas to be able to get the basic concepts where they construct. They were reproducing the Vimana when they were doing the Bell Project, and they went literally to the Vedic text to get the basic concepts of the mercury-based liquid that they used as their energy in the Bell and in their flying wing and all these exotic aircraft that the Germans developed.
Absolutely. And real quick, it kind of just to chime in here real fast. Have you heard of, you was talking about the Vinama, right? And then have you heard about, you was talking about the mercury. I was watching the broadcast the other night and I thought about this. Have you heard the term LK99? LK99 is an element that they're supposedly wanting to bring to the public as a free energy, all this stuff, But the thing is, it's really bizarre. If you rub it on a, like, for example, if you're able to bind it or, with a vehicle, right? Or just anything, I guess let's just say for fun, a bicycle, it would give the ability to levitate. It's called LK99, and it gets into the 0 point energy, all those different things. And I know, David, it's real. You're like, what, LK? But I don't know if you heard the name or not. But it's like, how much more can we get? These things are coming back, like you were talking about tonight. The things are coming back upon the earth. There's nothing new in the sun. Ecclesiastes. There's nothing new in the sun, which has been, you won't have no remembrance of. But back in the day, somebody had remembrance of something, right? So you're talking about these energies and different things, these applications, and I think this is what the Atlantis Rising series, this Atlantis and American series, is so important to listen to, that we need to be prayered up and put the full armor of God on, because these things are coming fast. I don't know what your take is on this LK99, my friend, but it's a thing.
Well, I've never heard of that. And I don't know about LK99, but what I do know is that in 1925, on a midnight ride not long ago, we actually put up the picture of the paper that was written in 1925 by a German scientist, where in 1925, he wrote the paper and he made the proclamation that he had transformed mercury into gold. And in 1925, and back with on the Trinity test site, back on the very first nuclear test, they created a new element that never existed before. And they called it trinitanium, I think, the green glass that we've also been found out in the Sahara. So what we know, and this was one of the big things that the Nazis wrote extensively about. They wrote papers about it all the way back to 1925, that metals could be changed. And they talked about this very thing, new elements being created and elements being transmuted. This was very much at the heart of this technology that the Germans were developing, and a lot of it involved crystals. So, I don't know about this. I know you'd have to be a pretty sharp knife to be able to develop that. You'd have to have some pretty extensive equipment to do it, but I know it's possible. And this is at the very heart of the science. And like what I believe, and I've said it over and over, and I'll say it again, that I believe the Einstein physics, this is physics for stupid people, and I believe there's an initiated, science falsely so-called, they're going to give you physics for dummies so you can take up your time but never do much. But the people that are getting it done, and they're getting this, the amazing things that a lot of them, things we see in the sky and can't explain, they're doing it through the concepts of Tesla and these other scientists that were developing these contexts of the aether, plasma, crystals. These are the mercury-based energy. These are the things that are getting it done. And there is and it goes all the way back, of course, to the paperclip that went not only in America, but in Russia. And I believe there's a confederation between the Russian and the American scientists. We'd be naive to think there weren't, and that this is the core of the initiated scientific elite. It was set in place then, and there's all kinds of things that we could, bunny holes that go into that. We could talk about secret space programs, all of these things, and a lot going on. But yeah, these things are not beyond the realm of possibility. They are not.
Absolutely. Write this down, David. Physics for Dummies. We'll put that on a T-shirt or a mug, and put AKA David Carrico on that quote.
Yeah. And last night on the Midnight Ride, John brought up something that one of his points, and it was about the Einstein theories, and it said that the theories of Einstein would bolster the heliocentric spinning globe narrative, and these other narratives would go against those scientific theories. Mm-hmm. So that was just I've seen this so much in the recent months that this is just a big psyop. Mm-hmm. And right now there are ministries that are saying that people like us, that we're a part of a CIA psyop. Well, I'm not a part of a CIA psyop. Sister Donna wouldn't let me work for the CIA, so I couldn't be a part of the CIA. But the psyop is the very thing that they're perpetrating. They're perpetrating this psyop of the heliocentric spinning globe. They have to have that in place, or they cannot pull off this final deception of Big Brother coming from a million miles away. He's coming here to help us. Yeah, the aliens are here, but really, and the aliens aren't here, but the Nephilim are here. And that's going to be, they're your friends, and they're here to save you. And this whole psyop has been going on ever since the 1950s. We've been saturated in science fiction movies and Good Kindly E.T., Phone Home, and the whole thing.
Well, I think just to kind of conclude on the Serpent Mound narrative here, these are ancient Nephilim structures, and they just don't want, they're doing their darndest to cover all this up and dust underneath the rug, so to speak. So yeah. And we got David, I want to throw us out this other location, my friend. This one it's kind of it's a personal place that I know of, and let's just show it. What do you think, David? You ready to
Let's do. And this is something I remember. How many years ago was that when you first told me about this? That just absolutely blew my mind. And I know we brought you on the Midnight Ride for a little snippet to talk about it. And I realized this is huge. I mean, the fact that there's a serpent mound here that's not even on the historical record, this is huge. And there's other serpent mounds that are not on the historical record. But this, in the proximity it is and everything, and the fact that you brought this to light, I mean, this is a big deal. People don't realize what a big deal this is and how telling it is that, we've got this here, and we're the historical society. We're not even interested, we're not even going to go there. I mean, it's absolutely the cover up, and just like the Bible says, they suppress the truth and unrighteousness. But this is phenomenal. The things that you've uncovered in this area are just absolutely phenomenal. So go for it, show the people, because I mean, this is really something. It really is. People need to understand how profound this is.
If my memory serves me correct, I think it was November of 2021 when we had that discussion. So, yeah.
2021.
Yeah, it was a blessing. But, yeah, let's get into it. So, here's the location. I got a slide up on the broadcast here. As you can tell, there's two. I've drawn it out on just a red Sharpie, so to speak, and I've indicated what there is. There's two here. This one is kind of a personal thing, and I'm trying to expose it. Getting a lot of flack from the local community and all that stuff, but hey, that's if God wants it to be revealed, he'll reveal it. So anyway, so what we have here at the top, so my family has been raised in this area, and if anybody was probably watching this, it's probably been my uncle, but anybody else would probably scoff at me and mock me and laugh at me. But there is significant data here, and let's get into it, folks. So the two locations here, there's a church in proximity, and there's a location. We're going to show a creek, and all the above, just like we did with the Serpent Mound a while ago. There's a creek not too far from the proximity of this Serpent Mound, and it's pretty baffling. So we're going to do some Google Earth imagery, and then we'll talk about it. And there's all the folklore and everything that connects to it. There's all kinds of people around here and the locals saying there's some kind of legend, the folklore around it. There's a red-headed giant with 6 fingers, 6 toes, and that story was even told, and some family relatives was talking about that. But then I even come across some taxi drivers just in the last few years talk about this, and they refer to it as a legend. There was there was cannibals or an evil man that lived down there, right? There's just all this legend, this prehistoric narrative, and it just baffles the mind, David. So what do you think, real quick, before I chime in and go to the Google Earth? What do you think?
Well, I think it's amazing, and I know very close to this, there is a mound that is surrounded by rocks in a circle. And I know Fritz Zimmerman, he said this is definitely Canaanite in his book, someone that studies this a lot. And we see the same thing here. We see the serpent mound in the portal. There's the unmistakable correlation here that we see over and over again.
Yeah, let's go to it. This is going to be pretty cool. I'm still on the serpent mound. I had a little so-called tech issue there for a minute. So that's all right. So continue on. But anyways, let me get my bearings here. It kind of messed me up here. So that's all right. So check this out, folks. I'll zoom in on it for you. When me and David did this midnight ride together, it was a Jubilees. I think it was a Jubilee midnight ride that we did, if I'm not mistaken, David. I think it's called Jubilees, the rise of something Jubilees. And I didn't get a chance to show any Google Earth imagery, so this was going to be really cool. So if you can see, here's the hinge, right? But this is the smaller one from that slide that I showed previously. This is the smallest one that I showed, and it's huge. I mean, we're talking 200 something feet long. You can see it's protruding out of the ground. It's pretty baffling, folks. It's pretty baffling. You can't make it up. And the one that's really baffling about the whole narrative, this area right here, there used to be a bigger one that sat right here, and it's still you can kind of still see it. But this section right here was excavated for, from what I remember reading in some textbooks and going back, it was the 20s. They excavated it for agriculture purposes, which I don't buy it, but there's a lot of military Renaissance missions and everything servicing around this particular site. So yeah, if you want to zoom out, I'll show you the one that I was showing earlier, and kind of give you a bit of a bigger perspective right here. So you can see, here's the smaller one that I highlighted, and here's the big one. As you can see, David, it's pretty baffling, my friend. Look at that.
Boy.
I mean, this is a big mountain range. This is not something you'd have to be pretty in a pretty good muscular physique to climb this. This is not it's not easy to just walk up. It's not an easy path, but this is pretty accessible. What's so baffling about it, though, you got your creek here, and it's in walking distance. So the whole folklore around, well, I wouldn't call it a folklore, but there was a brick house that was a big house, right? So this big house supposedly had this giant man that lived in it, and there was all kinds, I guess what you call fairy tale or whatnot in the folklore narrative to scare kids, etc. But I started looking at the whole thing, and this thing is one of the biggest cover-ups I've ever seen in my whole entire life, and I'm just trying to expose it, David. It's a big deal, and I claim it. No, I'm just kidding around. But I could speculate, go a little bit further on to it. But this creek is only 1 mile. It's missing 1 mile to become a river. This creek is giant, literally giant. It goes all over this county, and oh man, David, if you want to chime in and interrupt any time, but this is your traditional. I mean, even this looks younger. This one looks younger. This one looks older than the one in Ohio. Ohio at least has definition. It's defining. You can kind of tell. This one looks like it's older, in my opinion. What do you think, David?
Well, it looks like time has wore this down. The earth is much taller, and more profound in Ohio. And that could be because this one in Kentucky is older. And the just abject similarity here, you can just look at the end of this and this circle, that the hinge there at the end of the snake, it looks so similar to the one in Ohio. You just would have to be absolutely not paying attention to want to say that there's no connection to this. And the people don't want to they don't want to talk about these things in the narrative, in the educational system, the public fool system, as I call it, because that would prove that there was an ancient civilization that had contact with one another, and they don't want us to believe that. But the evidence for that is overwhelming. And well, what do we got here? We got a creek, we got a mound, we got a hinge. We got the same pattern. Well, these are not related. It's just ridiculous. We're seeing here a pattern of Atlantis Rising, of these ancient symbolisms of things that are very, very ancient, even older than the Tower of Babel. A lot of this Babel was definitely Nimrod wanted to revive it, disseminate it after the flood, but much of the stuff is antediluvian. And that could very well what we have here, an antediluvian site here, right there. And I'll say, too, if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't have been on the Midnight Ride, and we wouldn't be talking about it right now. And I'm so glad to be able to talk about it and to be able to have a visual record here produced for people to show, because this is very profound. It's very important in many aspects. So I'm very thankful, and I really appreciate all the work that you've done to bring this to light. If it wasn't for you, we would know about this.
Yeah. Well, bless you, David. I'm delighted to do it, man. It's a blessing. But yeah, thank you. Check on the screen here. I moved it from was going to miles, but I got a measuring tape across that. That's the width. It's a rough estimate, 340 feet, just the width of it, David. Wow. That's not even, if you look here at the outskirts of just the hinge in the circular, right dab in the middle of it. I mean, it's 142 feet. This thing's massive.
That's big.
And then that's not including the snake tail. If you went to the beginning of it, if we went and zoomed out and we just went to the tip, let's just say to the tip and then all the way to the end here, I mean, we're looking at like a lot of feet.
These are not small.
Yeah, a lot of feet.
This is an impressive, the Gilgal Rephaim. You just look at that and think about the effort and at the antiquity of the survival of the one in Ohio. And at this, we could very well, this is huge, and this is very well could be it could rival and even surpass these other sites in antiquity.
Yeah, and real quick, I don't have it since you mentioned it. I'm gonna travel down the street here and check this out, folks. I put this one on the Midnight Ride. Why not do it on the FLJC? David mentioned it. This one has the concrete wall around it, David. If you want to elaborate the Canaanite tradition, if you want to go and see, kind of go down that rabbit hole. Well, it's not really a rabbit hole. It's legitimate. And this mound is pretty massive. It's accessible from the road. It has a flagpole at the very top of it. And this one was the one that gave me anomalies whenever my phone started pinging and not pinging, losing signal, all kinds of issues with my compass application. That I know it's all electronic, but then for the document, it's kind of like the Skinwalker Ranch narrative. So I just want to, if you want to elaborate on the concrete wall, this concrete wall has been around it for a while now, for a long time, actually.
Yeah, and this is on the historical record. So they even acknowledge this exists. It's kind of hard to not acknowledge this one, because it is it's big and it's there, and it's got the wall of rocks around it, and this is a Canaanite characteristic. And even though, and this was added in later years to this mound, and we know even the people that did it, but why did they do it? Why was this done? Because this is definitely, it gives it the Canaanite flavor of what we would see over there in Gilgal Rephaim. And this was indeed the opinion of other students. So we have something that's very profound. And this just goes to show that this just isn't a place where we had one serpent mound. This was literally a worship center. This was a worship center, and no doubt, like you talked, there were villages, and I believe that there was a huge community here in remote antiquity. This was a huge site. There's a lot of things going on here that you've found. Two serpent mounds, this mound here with the stone wall and other things. We've got a center here. It's much like the studies into the Cahokia Mound in Illinois. It has revealed that this was a thriving metropolis and an ancient civilization. It was big, and I think we have the same thing here, the very same thing.
Absolutely. And real quick, just to kind of, because I would show it, but I want to respect the family and everybody that owns the property. Literally not too far ago, remember our Lewis Collins book that we was going to reference on the Atlantis in America, but we did do, I think, volume 1, but it might have been volume 2 that we didn't reference. Back in the day, David, not too far, literally like a mile from this, not even a mile, pick a civilization up on top of this mountain, because this is where the ancient cemetery of the giants, where you take a skull and put it over top the flesh and oval of a 6'4" man. Back then, that was large for that type of. This was like in the 20s and 30s, David. 6'4" man, and put the skull and all over the flesh, the shoulders, the whole shebang. They have an ancient cemetery of giants not too far from this, but then they said, let's just pick. There's so much information here, so much evidence of multi civilizations, Egypt, Peru, all the Tartars, the Tartarian narrative, not too far from this location, David. It just baffles the mind. I would show it, but I'm going to respect the family. But isn't that crazy, my friend? What do you think? I mean,
it probably ain't that crazy. We can make sense of this when you begin to put it together. And we saw the same thing when Tracy and we did the broadcast on the Olmecs. And in the Olmecs, we saw there were Egyptian and there were things that were connected with Black cultures, and there were things from the Asian cultures. Well, what would we make of that? That this was a place that was reinstituted after the dispersion at Babel. And we're going to see the same thing here. We've got Hindu artifacts in this area. We've got Egyptian, we've got Hindu. And the more you think about it, and the more you contemplate these things, that we're looking at antediluvian worship sites that were marked by symbols, and after Babel, that these and even with the program of Nimrod, these were to be reinstituted, Atlantis Rising, if you will, bringing back that realm of the giants and that antediluvian worship and the antediluvian world, the antediluvian technology, the whole ball of wax. And literally, that's what the new world order is. It's the reinstitution of that old world order.
Absolutely.
And it's nothing less than Atlantis Rising.
I wanted to show you something real quick before we get off this location. So here we are. We talked about Gilgal. We talked about the Serpent Mound. And we talked about portals and crystals and all these hinges and these mounds, right? Check this out, David. I have a survey. I'm not going to disclose it on here tonight, but I do have a survey archaeology sites. And I've known about it, but I haven't really put much effort into looking into it. But check this out. Not too far from this hinge, you go across the street here, which is the street. If you go approximately from this hinge, it's around this area. Somewhere, I have a map. Somewhere in this area right here. Somewhere in the circumference of my icon here, my mouse, there's a mound. No joke. It's either been excavated. I have a little bit of information on it. I'm trying to get more on it. But in this circumference, not too far from this hinge, right? Not too far, there was a big mound here somewhere. I haven't talked about it any broadcast. This is exclusive content for FOGC Radio, and there's somewhere around here. And if I can find the location, I bet you there's inundated with a ton of artifacts. As far as just because once they excavate them, they don't dig. See, they excavate them with so much primitive. I hate to use that term, but they primitive digging back in the day, They just sealed them up and kept moving. They didn't go back. They didn't go back to them. So not only that we've excavated, and there's giant elements, tibula and all this stuff. The ancient cemetery that's up on the hilltop, not too far from that one with the concrete wall around it. There was a giant mound here in this proximity of these fields here, right across the road, and it's missing. But I do have the archaeology site mapping, the survey work on it, David. So reel that one. We're going to dig into it more in the future, but I just want to kind of bring that up here on exclusive content for FLJC Radio, my friend. Yeah. So
yeah, and many of these mounds have been destroyed through time. A lot of the smaller ones, and a lot of the other ones are obscured in the woods and places in the jungles where there are so many of these that can be discovered and found. They're just all over. So many people in our area, you can talk to so many people, say, oh yeah, I got mounds on my land, and they know about them and they're there. And just so much confirmation of these things. And boy, I tell you what, I'm not going to give a whole lot away about this, but I have discovered just this week another site. It's up in the frozen north in Siberia that was discovered by the Russians. And I mean, it's got it all. And it's tied into Hyperborea. It's tied into Shambhala. And it's got pyramids. It's got it all. I mean, it's amazing. And the fact, I mean, these things are so astounding that the educational people, if they wanted to give us really an education, they'd be shouting these things, and they would be exploring these things instead of trying to cover it up. What a shame that the satanic cabal wants to suppress the truth and unrighteousness. But the thing about it, they can do all they can, and yet we've got so much evidence here that we can uncover these things. I mean, right here, just this evening, we are able to produce undeniable visual confirmation. Everyone can see in their own eyes that is right there for us. And I just love the truth. I want to find the truth, and I know you do too. And it's exciting to explore these things. And for all of the things we've looked into, we're just scratching the surface. There's so much to be learned about the underground realms, about the undersea realms, the underwater cities, so much truth about this ancient realm called Atlantis that was destroyed. Call it Mu, call it Atlantis, call it what you will. These things are everywhere on the land and under the sea. I think some of the most profound things are under the polar ice caps. And I believe this is why there's a lot of melting going on. It's not global warming, it's intentional. There's certain areas they want to melt off because they want to find stuff. I believe that wholeheartedly. And there's another recent find of a huge amount of petroglyphs in the Pacific that relate to Mu and all of this. But call it Mu, call it Atlantis. This is all this amazing ancient civilization. And there's the flood of Noah. And like Plato said, we read this, I think, in our first Atlantis in America broadcast, that there was a stream, he called it, of cataclysms that has buried many civilizations. And I believe that. And I believe with everything we study and uncover and connect the dots, we get a clearer picture that fits in with what the Bible tells us of what has been, what's happening now, and what's going to be, and about how we are to live in this time as the Israel of God, engaging in spiritual warfare, not falling prey to these things. And it's an exciting time to live in, because not only has this this demonic technology, which is a lot of it just fallen angel technology, while it is used for horrendous evil, it's enabled people to really discover some amazing things.
Absolutely. Here's a question for you. In the Siberia location that you're not going to disclose here, does it have Star Force close by?
I don't know about that yet.
Because the Great North is inundated with star forts, so it's kind of a impromptu plug-in, David. I'm going to push our new broadcast that since I'm going to talk about star forts, good time to plug in that Siberia location, David. Unless you're going.
Well, I tell you what, I'm all over it. It's driving me wild. We're gonna be. I'm gonna have John get on it. I mean, we're going to be talking about that and the ride. And I've studied this stuff more than your average duck, and I've never come onto this before, and it's fabulous. And one of the reasons why, this is stuff that the Russians have uncovered. And when you begin reading the Russian historians, like Fomenko and the Russian scientists, there's some brilliant discoveries and some brilliant information that these people are discovered. And a lot of this isn't known to the people in America, but I'm excited about it. And we're going to be popping that out on the ride next Saturday night. And it's exciting. And every one of these, we find the fact that these things exist and we've never known about them just boggles my mind. You know, my goodness, you would think that people that would discover this, they would want everybody to know it. But that's not the case. And we have to ask ourselves why. And we come up with some obvious answers that they have a program for us that they want us to fit into. But we just cannot do that, as we know. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about what the Lord's doing. And, you know, in the book of Daniel, it says, in the last days, knowledge shall be increased. Well, ain't it the truth? Absolutely. Ain't it the truth? Isn't it amazing that humble folks like you and I, that we're able to discover this? You know, we don't have the thousands of dollars behind us to do what a lot of people could do, but yet we're able to do this and do a really good job of putting together these things in a way that we can show everybody, looky there, look with your own eyes. And I'm just excited about it and so thankful to be a part of what the Lord's doing, because it is of the Lord. He's exposing. There's nothing that's covered that shall not be revealed, Jesus said, and this is absolutely the revealing of the workings of the evil one. And the Bible says the Holy Spirit will teach us of all things. And the Holy Spirit, if we go to the doctrine of Christ, the Word of God, the commandments of God, the Holy Spirit can teach us of these things, and we can understand exactly what's behind it. And it's just marvelous. I'm just so thankful for that which the Lord is doing.
Absolutely, David. So guess what? I'm looking for, look, we're only an hour and something in, and my friend, it's starting to get real frosty here in a minute. Everybody hang on to your seat, folks, because we got a lot more to show you. And especially stay tuned for that midnight ride that David was talking about. I'm looking forward to that, David. I mean, I'll be on the edge of my seat on the midnight ride, 11 p.m. Eastern time.
You're going to like it.
And listen, what we're getting ready to show here in a second, I'm gonna kind of relate back to one of the midnight rides you did a few midnight rides Saturdays back, and we're going to talk about a certain location. So this location in Kentucky, we just got done showing, right, with these hinges, server mounds. Would you believe, David, you're talking about these energy, all these energy, flowing of energy systems, magnetic fields, everything, evil energies that are upon the earth, and these gateways and stuff. Would you believe about 3.5, it's more or less 4 miles from this location, David? You got this. You ready? You ready, David? You got
I'm ready for it.
You got that right there. It's on the screen right there, my friend. Check it out, folks. We have this that has been erected in the land. And I'm not putting down on anybody, not trying to discredit the organization or any shape or form. But David's been talking about these hidden energies and stuff. And here we are, not too far from that server mound. We have this. So, David, what do you think about this? It's got the Umia Mata. That's how I pronounce Shiri Umia Mata. That's the best I can pronounce it with my Kentucky slang. But what do you think, David? What do you think we got here in this image here, this slide, my friend?
This is Atlantis Rising.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pristine example of what we've been talking about, that devils are coming through portals and manifesting themselves. And This is Kentucky. You know, would this have happened in Kentucky even 20 years ago? Would this have happened? And I'll let you talk about this, but the things that are going on here, right in the proximity with this, we've got all kinds of high strangeness. We've got the Serpent Mound, we got the Hinge, we've got a military base, and now we've got blatant idolatrous worship in a Hindu temple. And not only that, but the good Christian churches are joining in with it to promote it. I mean, you talk about Atlantis Rising. This is just showing what happens when these things are not checked. You know, the people of God, or the professed people of God, they could have stood against it, but they didn't. They bought into it, and they tried to, and they assimilate this into something that is acceptable. Well, they bought the farm. But I'll let you speak to this. This is right in your backyard. This is right where you are, and you know of what you speak here. And this is, you know, when you tell me about this, really? I mean, they're not really having a Hindu temple and rituals there in Kentucky. Aren't we, isn't Kentucky, aren't we conservative here in southern Indiana and Kentucky? Well, no more.
So, first of all, I always have like this. I don't ever want to hurt nobody's feelings or discredit. You know what I'm saying? I'm just don't have I'm that type of person. I just don't like to have conflict or anything like that. But the Father in heaven would have me expose these things the way it is, just straight up. And I know on FLJC radio, we don't believe in these ancient gods. We just can't. This is the Nephilim, the Raphaim, the Gilbarim narrative, the spirits that roam the earth. These are the things that David is talking about through this whole broadcast that are coming back upon the earth. And here's evidence. I pray for the people, the whole thing that happened. It was a couple-day event, okay? Shut down the streets and everything for the marriage ceremony, David. The marriage ceremony to this goddess, okay?
Oh, my goodness.
So we're going to show another slide, as you can see there, with the lions on the bottom of the fountain. And as you can see up there, it's a consort of Shiva. We're looking at what's the term? Ganesha. You hear the terms Ganesha when you think about these Hindu gods. And it's something to just ponder on, and you're like, oh my goodness, like you said, David. If you go back to the slide I had beginning, I'll tell you something I'd done a while back on the cutting edge. As you can tell here, you see the arms, right? And you got the one that wields the sword. So when you go, there's a connection here even with Sri Lanka. No joke, David. I'm not making this up. The Vinama, they call them how you say it? It starts with the M. The
Maharata.
That's correct.
Maharatas.
Maharata.
Mahatmas, I think, is the way Miss Blavatsky said it. Mahatmas, another good Russian lady.
So that word, they changed it to Vinama. You mentioned Vinama a while ago. These so-called cities that would float in the sky, and they would come down and get their gods at the temples. So what we have here is a direct connection to Atlantis narrative, the Vinamas and everything, the 6 fingers, 6 toes, all the ball of wax that we are trying to expose here on FLJC Radio with this Atlantis America series. This is the Vinama that you mentioned earlier. And Sri Lanka, if I'm not mistaken, in the it's called Triple City. I think in the Atlantis narrative, I think they called it Triple City. It was called Tripulia, I think. Did you know, David? I was cross-referencing and looking at everything, and I don't know, you already know, I think you know a lot about Sri Lanka and that lion-like head rock. Well, what's so bizarre about it, this lovely plate, the Vinama and the connection with Shiva and this Ganesha, the Ganesha people and all these different gods of Shiva and the consorts of Shiva and this goddess and all these different goddesses and everything. The direct connection of that triple city and Atlan was what in Atlantis was called America. If I'm correct on that, I think it's called Atlan. And then
Uh-huh.
the Triple City was a hovering like a hovering city, and it would transport all over the earth their gods. Okay, so which we have here, one that wields the sword. Well, you go to Sri Lanka, look at the flag, and it's got a lion like man of Moab narrative all over it, and you're like cringing to the. I get so excited talking about this stuff. Did you know that I looked at Triple City and I cross-referenced it, and every time I type in Triple City, Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka, kept coming up. All the research, every time I turn around, this great city, Sri Lanka. Come on, David. Is that rock over there in Sri Lanka? Is that the Vinama? Is that over there petrified Vinama craft over there, and that's got the ancient city on top of it? Come on now. It's just speculation here, visual disturbance realm of the FOJC reality of exclusive content. But David, where are we at, my friend? Because that picture that the Shira and Murai Mata with the one that wields a sword, that the whole narrative, it, even though there's kind of a bull there, or a yak, or however you want to describe that character, the animal there, the cow, the lion on the Sri Lanka flag, there's a direct connection with this whole Atlantis thing. And it just makes me, what's your take on it, Dave, before we move on? But it's just, I couldn't get past it without saying something about it tonight.
Well, let's just think about this and see if we can connect some dots. And a lot of people, when you talk about these things, that, this is absolute crazy time. But let's just think about what we know empirically that they've proven in Skinwalker Ranch, that they have measured that above that ranch, they've shot rockets up. There's something up there. There's a place where electromagnetic signals go wild, radiation, electromagnetic anomalies, and it's up above there. Well, what really is that? The Bible talks about principalities and powers in high places, literally in the heavenly places, in the heavenly realm. And there's a lot the Bible says about principalities, not only under the earth, but in that second heaven. Now, I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, and this always comes out of Asia, these floating cities. And there have been thousands of people in Asia, that in China and throughout Asia, that have testified to seeing these floating cities, and they've taken pictures of them, and you can see this on YouTube, not just a few, but thousands. So is it possible that what these ancient Vedic texts talked about, the Vimana, of these floating craft and cities in the sky, could it be? And if these Nephilim are coming in and out of portals, when they go out of a portal, where do they go to? Where are they going? Not going to Disneyland, but there are literally powers in high places. And I think that means just what it says. And I think this is very possible that, you talk about the old legends of floating cities where people come up and down of them. Well, this is exactly the concept here we're talking about, of the Nephilim going in and out. And we see this, there's all kinds of science fiction narratives that go around these floating cities. And this is not beyond the realm of possibility. And the more you think about these crazy concepts, what we've taught to be crazy and to dismiss as silliness, the more we think about it, we see the spiritual realities that they're bringing back and manifesting. They're literally manifesting Atlantis Rising. So it would make sense, what really is above Skinwalker Ranch? Is this some kind of are there really entities up there? They have entities pop up down there. Could this really be a place where they live, a floating city, if you will, in another realm that's right there? I think that's exactly what it is.
Absolutely.
I think it's exactly what we got.
Absolutely. This slide, when I found out that it's one who wields the sword, and you have this whole, the multiple arms, that's the deity here, the goddess worship, and then you go into the fountain, it's in meditation, it's got its legs crossed, it's sitting there Indian style, and you got the 4 lions on the bottom of this fountain, right? You got the 4 lions on that fountain outside, and I couldn't make it up. I said, man, this reminds me of that Cutting Edge broadcast that me and John did, Brother John. and the Sri Lanka thing, it has this, the comparisons are so, they can like intertwine with each other, right? It's just so baffling, David. And just to kind of go back and forth, in the 1980s, they did a cartoon called Lion, like the Thundercats, Lion like men of Moab, the Thundercats. Oh, and he goes, one that wields the sword, and it has the all-seeing eye and everything, and they all call forth these panther-like tiger deities, these lions. Then they all listen to Lion-O. And oh my goodness, there was so much connections and so much deep truths. And it's predictive programming. So it's just, for children, it's a children's cartoon to defragment your brain and not really to get the whole concept. You can't get the concept or the perception. You think it's just all of a fantasy world, right? But this stuff is in your face any day. And, what was the term I used earlier? I'm getting my bearings mixed up. It starts with a G, the Ganesha. The Ganesha, if I'm not mistaken, it's the elephant god, right? The Ganesha, and you see this in Argotha. You see this, the connection with Argotha. The Ganesha, the snout, like line, they're like red, like beings that live in Argotha, under the Hollow Earth theory. So I know that's not really, we're trying to change gears, but this is all connected to the term of when I mentioned at the beginning, when I was mentioning this, Umiya Mata in this temple, right? I don't know if they understand what they're doing. David, a little bit more insight and context for this. They shut down the streets. They did a marriage ceremony. They had like this, I don't know if it's some type of stuff on there indicating the blood, and they would wipe their hands with it and do this dancing. And the marriage, like marrying and going into the goddess worship, the deity. David, kid you not, my friend, check this out. Y'all did, you and John Pounders did this broadcast, and you brought this, I think it's similar, this imagery here with CERN. You got Shiva, the destroyer, right? And you have the doll, the stepping on the doll. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So you two was talking back and forth, and I was like, I wish I could get through the screen, guys, and bless you both. But I remember this broadcast. I told my wife, I said, I wish I could get on there with them guys, because at the time that y'all did that broadcast, I was already thinking about this temple that was been erected in my county. And sure enough, my friend, look at that for a minute. So there's this, this same time when they did this couple day, so-called, I guess if you want to say festival or ritual or, goddess worship of the marriage ceremony, that they all got married into this goddess worship. So what's your take on this destroyer, the Shiva at CERN facility getting crushed? There's this doll. I think John, if I remember elaborating to what he said, I think he mentioned Marduk. I think he was talking about, I think he was referencing that in that broadcast. What's your take on that doll that he is stepping on? Because I've got more information to talk about this temple and what they did that day. It's wild stuff, brother. Mm-hmm.
Well, in the occult, the concept, and here you see Shiva is stamping on this little doll effigy. And the concept, and we see a lot of this manifest in the Caribbean religions and voodoo and so forth, that the doll is used in sympathetic magic to, we all have seen it. Well, we'll stick a little pin in the doll. Oh, someone has a pain in their arm or whatever. And here we see the same concept here. Shiva is putting the ultimate pin in the doll, crushing. And this speaks obviously of subjection. It speaks of domination. It speaks of control. And of course, CERN, when you talk about big dog daddy portals, I tell you what, you got to put CERN up at the top of the list. And is it coincidental that here again, we have the same symbology manifesting right within the proximity? This is Atlantis Rising. This is the demonic coming into our realm, wanting to take over, wanting to set up the kingdom of Satan on earth. And we see these lions here. And there are two lines of symbology regarding the lion in Scripture. One, we know Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, but also Dan is a lion's whelp, the tribe of Dan. And Satan is reckoned to a roaring lion in the epistle of 1 Peter. So there is, in my mind, a connection with the tribe of Dan and the rise of the beast, and I believe that the beast will come forth from the tribe of Dan. I believe that. I'm all in on that, and I think this is exactly what this lion symbology is. And the whole thing with the doll, this is nothing but sympathetic magic of the darkest brood. And the whole concept of the marriage, the sacred marriage, goes all the way back to the Babylonian temple that was there at the foot of the Tower of Babel. And there would be one day a year where they would prepare this temple, and the woman would lay on this bed and invite, and they'd do their rituals, so that literally there would be a cohabitation event. This was carried out in the temple at Babylon. It was reenacted in the Egyptian temples. It comes down, a lot of the symbolism that comes down in the rituals of Freemasonry and witchcraft and the Great Rider witchcraft, and in Satanism, there's the marriage of the bride of Satan that's enacted. This is some of the most fundamental, pristine symbology tied in with the occult and the manifestation of evil. And you just want to shake people that they come from a conservative background, they come from a Christian culture, and they don't see the danger of partaking in things like this. This is a serious occult ritual, and it's it's frightening. And all you can do is blow the trumpet in Zion and warn people, and that there were others. You will stand up and raise a voice. Was there any pastors of any of these churches that voiced opposition to that? Did you hear a single voice?
They offered their parking lots because the overflow of the inhabitants of all the people, the occupants in the event, David. It's up on a hill. Mind you, it's up on an elevation cliff, and they shut the streets down, my friend. I'm not joking. They shut the streets down, told people to detour to a different location to get home, and it was several days, and they was taking over their parts of the acreage because there was thousands and tens of thousands of that went to the event from all over the earth. Well, was all over the earth. Okay, I'm not trying to disrespect them. I'm not trying to. I don't want to ever come across that as confliction or conflict. But my point is, they shut everything down, and the churches, like you asked me, they gave over their parking lots and their fields so they could have vehicles to park their places to park their vehicles, and it was just a very. I had to. I don't even, when we go out, we try to avoid that road. If we have to go down that way, we don't avoid that road. There's other ways to go around because I can't hardly look at it because it's so heartbreaking, to be honest with you. But they did, they shut down, they invited, basically was all for it, brother. They was all for it. There was no, nothing holding anybody back. It was, and I understand this country has religious freedoms. I understand. But then I think about everything you talked about tonight. What's it going to take for people to actually wake up and see the principalities and wickedness that are roaming the earth or coming up on the earth and showing their ugly head, and people are discrediting it and saying none of it exists, and then they're freely opening up their churches. I'm talking about all dominate. There was all kinds of different churches doing it, my friend, and it was a big event. Let's just say, I don't want to say too much, but they shut the streets down. They had to walk. They did these dances and everything, this parade, so to speak, and all their, the different rituals they did. And what's really baffling is not one person mentioned anything about it, like it was not a big deal to anybody. Everybody was like, oh yeah, that's fine. Let's just continue on doing what we're doing. And it gets worse, David. Do you want to hear some more? But I hope that answers your question. What do you think?
Well,
what do you think? What do you think about
this is the big point here. that something of this level, this huge, this blatant paganism, not one voice of opposition from the apostate church, I'll just call it what is. I mean, if anything proved the church is apostate, this is. They not only don't voice any opposition to it, but they help facilitate it.
Yeah.
Now, you might expect this in San Francisco. We wouldn't be surprised, or maybe in Salem, Massachusetts, but this is Kentucky.
Yeah.
No, this used to be a conservative area, and we see the same thing right now over in West Baden. You're familiar with that?
Yep.
That is becoming a huge gathering place. It's growing. They're having huge New Age events, the same thing, where people are gathering from all over the world to come to big events over there. So we're seeing a real explosion of this, and this is Atlantis Rising. It's exploding in our area, and the sad thing is the apostate church is a no call, no show. But the good thing is the Israel of God will stand, and will stand for the truth, and will reveal evil, and will show people, how to stand against this evil. And we will, and we're going to.
Yeah. Just to kind of add, throw some gas on the fire that's already lit. So we was referring to the Shiva and I was kind of going back and talking about the Midnight Ride, but here, check this out, David. I got another slide for you. So as we see here, folks, this is a throne. David mentioned it a minute ago about the dolls, etc. Here's the dolls. There was footage that was broadcasted, no joke, folks, live on a Facebook. It was on a Facebook platform when this was all going on. They will pray for the entity. The entity, you heard me, the entity would go into this doll. They would pray into it and summon it, I guess. And then they would do this dance and throw it up in the air. And guess what, folks? Just like Shiva did in this slide, they would step on it.
Oh Lord!
And when they stepped on it, the entity would go into them.
Oh my!
So look at the slide. Shiva stepping on the doll. There was humans. The angels' top man. We're talking about the Book of Enoch here. The 200 Watchers top man. All these different things. For what cost, right? There's a lot of pros and cons to this, right? So here we are. They had this doll. David mentioned voodoo a while ago. All kinds of different diabolical, sinister things that's been roaming up on the earth. But this was legitimately happening. They did the blood ritual ceremony for the goddess worship to yoke themselves with this. And they prayed the entity in there in their thrones. There's a ton of these thrones, and they would chuck them up in the air and step on them. And the entity would go into them. So, bet
it did.
Yeah.
The people that took place in this, took part in it. This is voluntary submission to devils of a very direct nature. I mean, there's nothing veiled here. These people are inviting these spirits into their heart and their life, and you bet they went in. There are people possessed with devils because of partaking in this. And that's the thing. This stuff is real. There's a reality to it. There's a spiritual danger to it. The powers behind the idols are devils, according to the word of God. And it's so sad that people are marching to the slaughter. They're willingly giving themselves over to this power. There's no heart, even among the so-called Christian leaders, to resist it. They're giving themselves over to the point where they will do this pagan ritual to have an entity come in them.
Absolutely.
We knew, I've known for years it was going to get real dark before the Lord returns, but it's getting dark.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just like Isaiah said, gross darkness upon the people. It's heartbreaking. It's amazing that it's even happening on a scale where, I mean, if they can do this in Kentucky, I don't think they need to expect much opposition anywhere. This is telling them that green light, baby, full speed ahead. These people are cowards. They're not going to say anything to us. And literally, that's what we see. We see the entire the transvestite movement. They're not only want to do what they do, but they want to take the Christian and rub their nose in it.
Absolutely.
You know, and I know our audience knows what's going on, but it's stunning.
Yeah.
You can't say that this is anything but stunning. And the fact that this is happening, you know, a good jog away from these ancient landmarks. This is Atlantis Rising.
Absolutely.
This is exactly what it is. And I want to share something too. And we're 2 hours in. I tell you, Brian, we're going to have to do another broadcast.
Yeah, we still got quite a bit left.
We got so much material.
Yeah,
that we're gonna have to do another broadcast. And listen, I got pull here. We can do that.
Yeah.
We'll do that. I mean, we just can't rush through this stuff. This stuff is so profound and so important. But I want to read a scripture here. And I want to read something from the book of Enoch. And I tell you what, during the days when Noah was a preacher of righteousness, you didn't have any trouble getting a seat on the ark. You know, there was plenty of room on the ark. There were 8 souls there. Anyone could have come on that they wanted. Noah was a preacher of righteousness. There in the time when the Nephilim were having their way. And in Isaiah chapter 60, it says, "Arise, shine, for thy light is come, for the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee." Speaking of the Israel of God, "For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people." If ever there was gross darkness upon a people, I think that which you have presented this evening, that's gross darkness. That's just not darkness, that's gross darkness. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. The glory of God is going to shine on the Israel of God. And that is our job, to shine a light in the darkness. And when we do that, there are people out there that love the Lord, that have the Spirit of God within them. They're going to know the truth when they hear it. They're going to know that their leaders have forsaken them. Jesus said, the way you tell a true shepherd from a false, the way you tell a true shepherd from a hireling, that the hireling will not fight the wolf. The hireling will run when the wolf comes. The wolf is here, and the wolf has ate their lunch, and they have no courage or no heart to stand up to it. But there is a people that the glory of God will shine upon, and they're going to bring forth the truth. And Brian, you and I, we're going to be a little part of that. We're going to be a little part of that. That the glory of God is going to shine forth truth and light, and there's going to be people set free, and there's going to be people realize that we don't have to go along with this. We don't have to bow the knee to Baal, that we can stand with the Lord even in this gross apostasy, because the Lord is going to shine upon the Israel of God. And in fact, this will be our greatest hour.
Amen, David. I agree with everything you just said, man. What a very impactful statement, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was impactful. Yeah, there's one thing I want to throw in here too. So lukewarm Christians, right? You can be hot or cold. Listen, what we presented here tonight, I'm gonna take my hat off to the people that did. I mean, I'm not trying to give them credit here, but at least they was able to they congregated together. They was able to work together and build a big production standpoint, stadium, everything, like the whole ball of wax, everything. And we can't even open up our scriptures. We can't even read our word. But they did this elaborate, beautiful shrine, everything, the thrones calling people forth all over God's country. And we can't even have nobody gather and yoke themselves in Jesus Christ and literally love the doctrine of Christ. You can't just, it's all just figurative. It's all this. We can't, the Genesis 6 stinks. It don't matter. It's not even there. The rapture bus is coming. You come on, people, really? And then they get up on this high mountain, up on this temple here, and do this elaborate, beautiful setup. at least I'm not trying to give them credit. At least they went all way. They went hot, right? We can't, and we're and those lukewarm Christians like, yeah, this is just beautiful. This is just a beautiful thing. La di da di da. Just nonchalant, lackluster. Just it's unacceptable. That's just straight. It's just unacceptable. That's just, I mean, I have to agree, Dave. It's very unacceptable. It's disgusting, and just to be given over like that, just like, oh, just whatever, whatever, free go, just anything goes. No, literally, principalities, wickedness. We're talking about Ephesians 6 here, verse 12.
Yeah,
it's come upon the land, and they're just completely blinded. Like it doesn't even matter. Let's go to the Golden Corral, the fish fry, whatever it is, whatever type of new age thing or whatever kind of thing we can get involved with. If we can mingle himself with this, mingle with that, we'll even donate money to make sure they have the stadium or the concert set up, right? And it's depressing, sick. I mean, I hate to use the term, but it's straight up out of the gates of hell. And I was a little hesitant to showing it, but it has to go along with the Atlantis Rising series here, and I pray the Lord that people understand, and I pray that the Lord shows people that their fault. I pray that they understand their fault and they repent from all this wickedness, David. Mm-hmm.
Amen. And it did my heart good just this week when we all got together and prayed, and you were a part of that. We came together on our prayer meeting on FOJC, and you and I and John Pounders, John Hall, and Jimmy Cooper, and our whole crew here at FOJC. We and Donna and everybody, Brett, we got together and we prayed and we sought the Lord, and that's what we're saying. We're not going to lay down. We're not going to lay down or roll over. We're going to pray. We're going to stand where the Lord stands. We're going to seek the Most High God, and we're going to see the glory of God come forth to the salvation of many people, and a lot of people coming out of the error they're in, and it is just so encouraging to see the Spirit of God moving away like that. And I want to share one last thing here from the book of Enoch. And this is really so profound from the book of Enoch. And when we talk about all these ancient things and, oh my goodness, oh, it's so evil, so powerful. And yeah, it is. But at the cross, Jesus Christ made a shew openly of these entities. Now, in the book of Enoch, chapter 13 and verse 7, Enoch is speaking, and he says, and I went off and sat down at the waters of Dan, in the land of Dan, to the southwest of Hermon. I read their petition till I fell asleep. And behold, a dream came to me, and visions fell upon me. Now, the point here, and this is literally after Enoch, little old, I don't know if he's little or not, but he was a human being, and he went up and personally rebuked the watchers. And then he goes to the waters of Dan at the foot of Mount Hermon, biggest portal there ever was or could be. He lays down, goes to sleep, and the Lord pours out on him revelation. We are in the midst of an evil place here, but the Lord will pour out revelation upon us just like he did upon Enoch of old. The Lord God omnipotent reigneth. He is in charge. Even though this world is in the lap of the evil one, Atlantis is rising. The Israel of God is going to do a mighty work, and we're going to see many people set free, many people come to salvation. And what a graphic illustration that even at the very foot of Hermon, at the waters of Dan, there's those waters again. And the Lord poured out that revelation upon Enoch. He is doing the same thing to us now. And I just praise the Lord for it. I give him all the credit for it. And it just does my heart good.
Amen, David. And I couldn't agree more, man. I'm very thankful and everything you just said. It's time to get real serious, folks, because we are at the precipice of something dark, and like David was saying, but there's light in the tunnel, because look, we got Jesus on our side.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that can hold us back. I mean, but fear. And God's not putting the spirit of fear in us. And I just think that we just need to be praying. This country's coming out of the. I mean, everything's coming back. It seems like of the ancient times and Diluvian world, in my opinion. But David, I got a question for you. You think we're going to do another part 3 to the Atlantis in America? You want to do us another segment to Atlantis? I think we should, Dave. What do you think?
But we got to. I mean, we've got too much stuff here to talk about. I mean, we got some really frosty stuff we didn't get to. Absolutely. Well, whatever we're going to call it, we'll call it something. We got to finish this because, my goodness, we're 2 hours and 10 minutes in, and we could go another 2 hours. But yeah, absolutely. We're going to do another part to this. We're going to do we got a Star Fork coming, and but yeah, this is, we might want to do this before our Star Fork, because I mean, there's some things here that we really need to talk about. We didn't even get to the part of the way this segues in with the ancient Mercury technology, so many things. So absolutely, we've got to do another sequel to this. And we're going to, I got pull here. We can do what we want to do. We're going to let the Lord lead us. And I'm glad we didn't just try to rush through all of these things. We've had just let the Lord lead and be able to talk about these things, to help people understand just how profoundly important this is and what an urgency there is. And not only are we going to do another part to this broadcast, but we're going to be coming together again and praying. And most certainly you'll be a part of that, and we're going to be getting together very soon in the next few weeks, and we're going to come together again. We're going to pray, and we're going to seek the face of God, and we're going to be blowing the trumpet in Zion, and we're going to be kneeling between the porch and the altar and calling upon the Most High God that He will use us as His instruments in these last days.
Absolutely, David. It's a blessing, everybody. I thank you all for allowing us to do this and to be. There's a ton of people in the chat. God bless all you all. Thank you so much. And I seen some. There's some donations. Bless you all so very much. You all know who you are. God bless you.
Oh yeah, bless your heart.
Thank you so much. We're very appreciative of the whole FOJC radio, David and Donna. Just check all the descriptions in the description box. And David, I guess just you're going to end us out, but it's been a blessing, my friend. I really enjoyed this broadcast with you. It's been a good one. I think this might have been better than the first one. The first one was a success.
I have just thoroughly enjoyed it. I just enjoyed it. I really am thankful for your heart to study these things and want to bring them to light. I really, really appreciate you and our opportunities to get together to do these. And boy, we got more to do, and we will. And we just want to thank everybody, everybody in the chat. We love you. We appreciate it. And if you all wasn't here, me and Brian be talking to herself, and we'd be feeling real silly, So we're glad that you're all here to be able to, and we know that that's your heart to be able to come to these understandings. And just thank you so much for all of your support that you give to FOJC Radio Visual Disturbance. Thank you so much. We mean that. And we really could not do what we do without you. And with that, I think, the only way to stop something like this is just to stop. And we just want to say, with all of our heartfelt thanks and all of our praise unto the Lord, that until our next Sunday Night Live, and we're kind of going back and forth, as y'all know, we'll be on Rumble here with me and Brian, and then we'll be over on YouTube. But we've got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to do everything we can to just lift up the Lord and shout it from the rooftops. And we just feel the help of the Lord in that, so we're thankful. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm just going to say, until our next FOJC Radio Sunday Night Live, which will be next week, probably on YouTube. High five and good night, everybody, from FOJC Radio Sunday Night Live.